Emily didn't quit because she was lazy.
She quit because staying felt like being exposed.
And most people don't realize this.
The job, it wasn't the problem.
The feeling of being seen was... So let's talk about the pattern. It always starts with this quiet optimism, the feeling of a fresh start. It almost feels like redemption, a silent promise you make to yourself that this time things will be different. This will be the place where you finally stop starting over.
And for that first month, everything seems to go right. She'd arrive early, take these incredibly detailed notes, double-check every little instruction. In meetings, she'd stay quiet, mostly because she didn't want to sound inexperienced. And people noticed. Her managers liked her. Her coworkers would say she was thoughtful, reliable. And the thing is, she wasn't pretending. She genuinely, deeply wanted to do well.
But somewhere in that second month, something always starts to shift. It's not this big, dramatic thing. It happens quietly. That initial excitement, it doesn't just disappear. It tightens. It turns into pressure.
These tiny, little moments start to linger, like a manager correcting her wording in an email. Objectively, it's nothing, right? It's insignificant. But internally, it felt so heavy.
Or, a coworker sounding just a little bit impatient when she asks a quick question. It's a completely normal interaction, but it starts to feel like a judgment, like she did something wrong.
So what does she do? She starts trying harder, over-preparing for everything, rewriting messages 5, 10 times before hitting send. And from the outside, it just looks like dedication, doesn't it? But from the inside, it felt like pure survival.
And this is when the exhaustion sets in. And it's not a physical tired. It's emotional. It's the exhaustion that comes from constantly monitoring your own tone, your own competence, replaying conversations in your head for hours long after everyone else has moved on and forgotten all about them. Because here's the absolute core of it, and this is so important. Emily didn't experience feedback as information. She experienced it as exposure. It didn't feel like someone was just pointing out a small mistake. It felt like someone was discovering the truth, that she wasn't as competent as they all believed her to be.
So we arrive at the relief of escape, that addictive feeling of just disappearing. By that third month, the job stops feeling like a job. It starts feeling like this giant mirror, reflecting every single insecurity she had ever learned to hide. And suddenly, quitting, it doesn't feel like failure anymore. It starts to feel like sweet, sweet relief.
But why? Why does quitting feel so much like relief? Well, the feeling is almost immediate. The very day she would hand in her resignation, you could just feel her shoulders relax, her breathing slow right down. All that mental noise, it would just soften.
There's actually a term for this. Psychologists call it avoidance reinforcement. And it's not just your brain learning a lesson, it's actually carving a neurological pathway. Think about it. When leaving a situation removes all that anxiety, you get this rush of relief. And that relief, that becomes the reward. It's teaching your nervous system on a deep level that escape is the solution. And when you do that over and over, that pathway becomes your default setting.
So the real issue here is the fear of being seen. This is the reason the pattern keeps repeating. It was so easy for her to blame the environment, blame the management, the lack of growth, but the real pattern, it was never external. It was emotional. She wasn't actually escaping the job. She was escaping the version of herself that the job activated.
And this goes way back, long before her career ever started. It's about a core belief that gets shaped in childhood. This quiet understanding that approval is conditional. You get praise when you perform well, but you get silence when you struggle. And pretty soon, you learn to fear that silence more than you fear the mistake itself.
And what happens then is that competence stops being a skill that you can learn. Instead, it becomes an identity, something you have to defend at all costs. Think about the difference. When competence is a skill, mistakes are just information. Growth is the goal. But when it's your identity, mistakes feel like exposure. And the goal isn't growth anymore. It's just safety.
And that's why it's always 3 months. That's the threshold. It's this unconscious point where the novelty of the new job wears off and expectations start to stabilize. It's the moment the fear of being fully and imperfectly known just intensifies.
So how do you break the cycle? It's about giving yourself permission to stay. It's about shifting from this need for confidence to just being present. The breakthrough for Emily didn't come from more motivation. It actually came from a totally different kind of exhaustion. Not being tired of the job,
but being tired of the identity, the deep, soul-crushing exhaustion of constantly performing.
So the breakthrough? It wasn't about finding more motivation. It wasn't some new productivity hack she read about. It wasn't even about getting a better job offer somewhere else.
It was permission, just permission. So instead of resigning this time, she did something that seems incredibly small but was psychologically radical. She just admitted uncertainty. Out loud. In a meeting. She just said, honestly, I might be misunderstanding this. Could you explain it again? And you know what happened? The world didn't collapse. No one looked disappointed in her. Someone simply helped. And in that one tiny moment, that core belief that escape was the only way to be safe, it just weakened.
Emily didn't need a better job.
She needed proof that she could stay imperfect and still be accepted.
And maybe that's what we're all really trying to learn.
That being seen doesn't have to lead to rejection.
Sometimes it's the beginning of belonging.